Rob Williams is the national sports editor of the Daily Hive and its Offside Sports Vertical. Also, Rob the Hockey Guy on Twitter. He joins us now. Rob, how are you?
Doing great. Still buzzing about this Pettersson news. I think it's got everyone talking, and I don't know that anyone saw this coming last when the news broke late yesterday afternoon.
Take a bow, Rob. All the noise brought Petey back to the bargaining table.
This couldn't have happened without us blowing it up on social media and Daily Hive. Absolutely, I think this is a win for the Canucks media, isn't it?
Canucks Twitter remains undefeated on this one.
Yeah,
I laughed at the guys that were trying to dunk on me and others yesterday about, like, you guys got this all wrong. And then these are the same guys that earlier in the week were like, he already said he's not going to sign until after the season. Yeah. So,
well, I got to admit, I'll take the L on terms of when Elliot came out with that report on Saturday. I did not think this would be constructive. I thought you were really baiting a guy who had made it clear he didn't want to negotiate during the season, but it seems like the Canucks leaking that teams were making calls on him has gotten him to a place where he feels like, okay, enough of this. I also wonder whether Rick Tocchet's comments with regards to he's only human, there's a lot of noise, it may well explain some of the underwhelming performances recently, also contributed to all of this. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, with the fan reaction, it's funny. Like, it's just been a wild week because I feel like this Pettersson situation, I feel like everybody's been biting their tongue for weeks and weeks and weeks, and there's no new information. So I don't think it really gave anyone to, anything to really chew on. And then we get just a few slivers of information, beginning with Elliot Friedman over the weekend. And I think it just set everything off. I think everybody was ready to just finally be like, yeah, like, why doesn't he want to talk? And I think that was the situation. And I've maintained throughout this, I'm like, I'm not saying he doesn't want to be in Vancouver, but if he didn't want to be in Vancouver, the playbook would be, I don't want to talk contracts. I don't want to say anything, because you don't want to reject a contract offer, right? Like, what if they offer like $100 million and you reject it? Then that's kind of an indication that you want it out. So I think it was perfectly logical that people were asking questions like, why doesn't he want to talk? Now that all of a sudden he's now willing to talk, I do wonder if that was and Matt, I agreed with your take on that. I thought, geez, this is not, he doesn't like noise. And I think that helps explain why Canucks fans were so, some of them anyways, got so upset with the Canucks media talking about this, because I think there's an understanding with a lot of people that Pettersson doesn't like noise. He doesn't like making headlines, as he said many times before. But I do wonder if Canucks management maybe appealed to him in the sense that, hey, we need to know what this number is going to be so we can plan for the future, so that we can help put a winning team on the ice. I think that perhaps appealed to Pettersson in this situation, but I definitely didn't see it coming.
I do think that there is an element of that, Rob, that, like, yes, he's a hockey player, and yes, we know he doesn't like noise, and he's focused on a playoff run and all that kind of stuff, but like, he's been at this for 5+ years now. He understands his role in all of this. And as you said, at the top of the pay structure, I do wonder if his agents finally got to him and said, like, Elias, you can't hold up the business of hockey. Like, you may want to put this off, but there are so many big picture decisions. Whatever the case, I don't know if we'll ever know ultimately what got the two sides back together, but if you're one that wanted to see a resolution of this deal, this certainly has been a good 24 hours for Canuck fans. And again, it's not done until it's done. We know that, but certainly sounds like there's been some positive traction.
I mean, the biggest move here is that we get an indication that Pettersson wants to stay. And until now, we got no indication on that. It was never like, it was always just, I want to wait till the end of the season to talk contract. It was never, I love Vancouver, I want to stay. That's my goal, is to re-sign with the Canucks, and we'll talk after the end of the season. It was never that, right? And I think that was the great unknown was, does he want out? And getting an indication now that, to talk about an 8-year deal, like that's a pretty clear indication that, he's at least, he's more than open to staying in Vancouver. It sounds like he does want to stay in Vancouver, and that's, great news for Canucks fans.
Do you think this now unlocks them to do something at trade deadline? I mean, they've already made a big move on Elias Lindholm, but do you think knowing that PD will be here now is going to unlock something trade deadline wise?
Perhaps, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're adding someone with term, I guess you'd like to know as much information as you possibly can have. I mean, there's a few, they still have to re-sign Philip Hronek, and there's, and lots of other UFAs that they have coming up, so they're not going to have like complete cost certainty. I do wonder how much more of the future they can give up at this deadline. I mean, they've made the big move for Lindholm. I saw, Tanev moves, and I think that was smart for them not to be, in the bidding for that, like to give up, not a first round pick. He didn't fetch that for the Flames, but 3 future pieces. The Canucks don't have a lot of draft picks coming up here. I think they do need to be prudent in that sense. So I'm really interested to see what they do. I mean, I think they probably make a couple moves around the fringes, maybe bring in a big forward. I think would make a lot of sense. I know Jordan Greenway is someone that's been mentioned in the past. Someone like that could make sense to me, and perhaps a depth defenseman. But to bring in a top 4 defenseman at this point in the season, like that's going to cost a lot. So I don't know if they should be in that market, but you never know. I mean, Rutherford apparently likes to make big moves at this time of the year.
Well,
go ahead.
He made his big move at the All-Star break with Elias Lindholm. They're 12 games into this and hasn't exactly blown the doors off anybody, I don't think. What have you seen in Lindholm? Where do you think he is best slotted ultimately? Because it didn't work with the Elias combo. Now, that's not to say they can't revisit that at some point, but pretty underwhelming. I mean, there have been the 2 games where he scored twice, but other than that, it's been awfully quiet around Elias Lindholm.
Yeah, I mean, and if you take the snapshot after that first game where he has the 2 goals, it's been not amazing for Lindholm. Just the 4 points in 11 games since that a wonderful debut. That looked like it was like, okay, stroke of genius. He's going to slide right in here and fit perfectly. I think there's the awkwardness though of the 3 centers. I think you've got Lindholm, who was a runner-up to the Selke a couple seasons ago. Ideally he's a centerman, and being a good matchup center, I think, for you. But which one of Pettersson or Miller are you going to move to the wing? I don't think either one of those guys is going to be thrilled about moving away from the middle to play the wing. And we haven't seen, in Lindholm, the reports out of Calgary were that, he wasn't having exactly the best season this year, despite being an all-star. I don't know that he was really having a great year. And so that's the worry, is that, okay, maybe he's just not having a good season. Maybe it wasn't being in Calgary was the issue. In terms of where he fits best, I don't know. It hasn't been a great fit. I think ideally you'd like to have him on a line with Pettersson to give Pettersson a reliable elite level player, rather than trying to squeeze in guys that are middle 6 forwards onto his line. So it remains to be seen. I think ideally you try to get him to fit on a line with Pettersson, and whoever plays center, it might not always matter in terms of the first one of them back in their own zone basically acts as a center in their own zone. But we'll see. I think that there is something to be said about having three centers deep in the lineup. And that gives you Bluger on the 4th line. In that situation, you're not scared to have any one of them out there. If you're in a playoff series against a Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, gives you a little more flexibility to that. But I think ultimately you want to have 2 really potent lines that can go out there and score. And I think that's with someone moving to the wing.
Let's ask you our poll question. Should the Canucks have outbid Dallas for Chris Tanev services? Now, they give up a B minus level prospect in Grushnikov, a second-round pick, a conditional third, which is only if Dallas reaches the Stanley Cup final. And it's unclear whether the Canucks would have wanted or needed brokerage with New Jersey, which would have cost an extra fourth-round pick to further diminish the Chris Tanev salary. But, with or without the fourth-round pick and the brokerage, Rob, you tell me, should the Canucks have paid this price or beaten this price to see if they could get Tanev back?
I don't think so. I think Tanev ultimately ends up in Vancouver anyways. I think he ends up here as a free agent. I just think that they've just traded so many future assets. At some point, you kind of have to say, okay, we need to hold on to some draft picks at this point, and to have that many assets go out the door for a player like Tanev, who would, it would have been great to see him back in a Canucks uniform, and I'm sure it would have made a lot of people happy in that Canucks room. I just don't think that you can be in the business of seeing that many assets go out the door, given what you've already given up.
Just back on Elias for a second. I don't know what Daily Hive readers have been saying about this, and Offside readers have been saying about this, but certainly our feedback channels have seen more and more fan anger at Elias Pettersson. Fans not quite as joyful about Elias Pettersson as they have been in the past, grumbling about everything that this has caused, wondering about whether he wants to be here. Some fans just couldn't deal with it emotionally and had moved on. We had seen that. Get rid of him. He's not worth 12 and a half, soft playoff player, and all of those things. Do you think Elias's brand equity in this market may have played a role in all of this, that he noticed that fans were getting a little tired of this and turning on him to some degree?
Really hard to say. It's
what have your readers been saying? Have you been seeing some of that?
No, I've seen the same thing as well. So much of our feedback comes through social media. So I think we're seeing, similar feedback. I think it's a minority of people that were starting to turn on him. I think really that's it's like an emotional hedge, right? Where you start to think, well, maybe he doesn't want to be here, and then you go, oh, we don't need him anyways, right? I don't know how truthfully, in Canucks fans' hearts, I think fans desperately want him to stay here, and I think with every day that went by, though, there was more and more of that. Does he want out, right? And then I think that's where it starts to turn. But I don't think it fully turned to a point where he's feeling like, oh, the market's turning on me. I don't think it.
There has been a significant development, and that has been a shift to Team Miller.
That's it.
We're starting to see.
That's it. And just about to say, J-Pat.
And how can you not, with the way that he's played since the All-Star game?
Yeah, hey, is this why he started negotiations to quiet down the Miller loving?
Hey, this is my town. You're gonna chant my name at the rink.
JT didn't hear it, but Elias certainly did.
That's right.
We had a discussion about that after I was in the scrum where Miller said that he didn't hear it. I took him at his word. I genuinely believe that he didn't hear the chants, and I can understand. I think it becomes a bit of white noise unless you're maybe in a stoppage in play and you're sitting on the bench, and then you can give yourself a chance to actually ask what fans are yelling out. But Miller really is becoming a fan favorite, and I think he's been one of these guys that just produces points. 3 straight seasons of over 80 points. In terms of the counting stats, he's been a tremendous player for the Canucks, but there's always been all of these questions. When he arrived, it was the trade. Did they give up too much to get him? Then it was, should they move him to help kickstart the rebuild? And he was in trade rumors for years. And now it seems like finally, okay, the team's good. He's playing exceptionally well. I'm amazed at how physical he's been playing. It's not just the points; he's hitting everything. He's finishing every single check. So You have to commend him on that. The other cool thing I've noticed a little bit with Canucks fans and Miller, Al Murdoch, the way he says JT Miller.
Mhm.
I've noticed that Canucks fans are now filling in the Miller part, saying it kind of mimicking Al Murdoch. That's been kind of a cool thing too that I've noticed from Canucks fans that they've picked up. So yeah, it's been interesting to see how Miller. I feel like he's now finally becoming more widely a fan favorite.
I think you're absolutely right. We mentioned that earlier in the week, and our friend Al Murdoch was engaged on that tweet from ours. He's noticing it too, and it's a great deal of fun. As are you, Rob Williams. Thank you for this. We will catch up next week.
Rob.
Sounds good. Thanks, guys.
Hey, everybody. If you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.